Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, this is Boisterous coming to you with some Masters League Magnificence out on the map Daybreak. Spying down here in the bottom of the left-hand corner, we do have Ben as the red Protoss, and up here in the top of the right-hand corner, we do have Nasreth as the blue Zerg, and it would appear that they are talking about some random stuff. Alright, well, you know, no need for introductions, no need for good luck, have funs. I don't need to know that you people are mannered. I just need to know that, you know, you delay gases for thirds. And you know, oh, okay, whatever. That's perfectly okay. So, of course, we are going to see a ZVP on Daybreak, and ZVP is, of course, one of my favorite matchups because it has a Zerg in it, and I love Zerg as a race. They're just so much fun to watch. And if you guys think I'm a favoritist for Zerg, I am. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I just don't really, I try not to let it bleed through too much. I just like Zerg a lot because I like their mechanics and I like their aesthetic. They're just so cool. They're like ants. That's funny. And if you guys don't get why that's funny, that's okay, because it was nerdy and it was a bad reference to another series of StarCraft shows, which you guys should go watch, because I've recently started working with the mechanics of StarCraft and the anatomy of StarCraft guys over on the channel Panera86. So you guys should all check that out. That is, of course, youtube.com/user/Panera86, Ponera 86. They just had EGN Control on last week talking about Immortals, and it was a pretty good episode. I have to say, they shoehorned in a Jersey Shore reference, and that was pretty good. It felt nice. And you know, these guys are still talking about nothing. I don't think either of them have dropped the good luck have funs yet. But, you know, it's okay. You don't need to be man or win your Masters League. You just need to be good at the game. It looks like we do have the spawning pool coming down. This is a 15 spawning pool? Maybe a 14 spawning pool? I think it was a 15 spawning pool, though. It looks like we have two drones moving down to the natural. They are going to be doing their best to deny a pylon from going down here, and they might actually be able to do an okay job. This drone, man, that was pretty good. A lot of people don't actually send down the second drone, which is something that I very much prefer to see people do. It looks like we are going to have the Forge Fast expand coming out from Ben, so kind of letting your opponent get the hatchery down is usually a smarter decision when you go for a Forge Fast expand, because if your opponent's good at being aggressive, and you know he already went for the spawning pool first, and if he manages to get his extractor up fast enough, it's typically a pretty dangerous and in general crappy situation if he just decides like, you blocked my fucking expansion, you whore, and then he just attacks. Usually doesn't end up well for you. But anyway, we do have the Zergy opponents facing off against this Protoss opponent in the main base. The photon cannon is going down, so the drone did get the scout out off on the buildings, so he does know that the Nexus is on the way. He knows the photon cannon is on the way. He knows that this is going to be a little bit of an awkward position to break, and I doubt he's going to go for any amount of pressure. He's probably just going to get map control with these Zerglings and then kind of sit back in his base and not do a whole lot. We do have the second queen currently coming up from Nasreth. The first queen is, of course, going to be heading down to the natural, which is the usual thing to do with your queens. You have you just build all of your queens out of your first hatchery, your natural, your regular expansionist hatchery, and then you just send your queens down the ramp to your respective bases, because it works out way more efficiently. You get queens there actually at a reasonable amount of time. It looks like we do have a little bit of a drone trick going down there. Not the biggest one, because you know there was an overlord that popped out literally right after he did the drone trick. But you know it's a fancy. It's a little bit of finesse. It gives you an extra like third of a second of mining time on a drone for a sacrifice of probably more minerals than you would pick up with that extra third of a second of mining time. But you know what? That's a-okay. I'm not gonna go that far into Nasreth on that one. I'm not personally for it, but if you are, it's perfectly fine. It's all about preference. It looks like we do have +1 weapons attack coming out extremely early for Ben, so I could see some very early pressure coming out from this Protoss player. Usually if you see someone going for such an early +1 attack, you're going to see some level of Zealot harass or a Zealot push in the mid game, because Zealot pushes are very strong up till the 10-minute mark, or at least up until the Zerg player gets +1 armor, because they do so much more damage to Zerglings. You know, instead of 3 hits, it's 2 hits, which is, you know, an extra 3/4 of a second that your Zealot gets with every Zergling it has to kill. So, you know, you'll see Zealots just rip apart Zergling armies that they would normally lose to. And it's a really interesting upgrade in this matchup, because it literally it's like a wall for Zealots. Zealots are not going to be cost efficient. As soon as they get that upgrade, they're going to be insanely cost efficient. It's really interesting to watch and to look. If you ever get a replay where you see somebody that goes very heavily into the Zealots, the +1/+2 Zealots, and they're going against somebody that goes very heavily into Zerglings, and you just analyze it, and preferably there's an engagement before the +1 finishes and then right after the +1 finishes, you will just see the most insane swing in unit control, or not really control, but in unit survivability between those two fights, because, you know, the first fight, the Zerg will probably mop it up. It won't be amazing. It won't be a out of the park victory for the Zerg player, but it'll be very nice. And he won't really need that many Zerglings. And then the second fight, as soon as those Zealots get +1, it's going to be absolutely absurdly in the favor of the Protoss. It is seriously an interesting mechanic, and it sounds like I'm harping on it a little bit, but that's because it just is that awesome. We do have some beautiful force fields coming out from Ben, actually perfect force fields, basically. That was pretty sweet. That was pretty suave. Nice job, Ben. Huh, that was cool. Anyway, we do have the third Nexus now just finishing up for Ben. Nasreth, of course, finished up his third hatchery just a little bit ago. So we do have the Zerg player in the predictable, better kind of economy state. If we look at the income, we do have the Zerg player actually not ahead that much in income. He does have more drones getting produced on an average basis, so we are going to see him kind of starting to take major leads pretty soon as far as economy goes. But for now, he's pretty even. We do have 13 drones on the way, which is quite a few drones. It looks like we are going to have a reasonably fast Colossus tech coming out from Ben right now. Nazareth will probably be able to scout this out pretty easily because, you know, Ben has not actually been killing any of the overlords of his opponent, which isn't the best decision when you're playing as a Protoss player. Usually, as soon as you get sentries or as soon as you get stalkers, you want to be running around and kind of cleaning up those guys. And very interestingly, we do have Ventral Sacs and Pneumatized Carapace, which is, of course, Overlord Speed and the Overlord Drop capability coming out from Nasreth. So we might see some pretty cool strategies coming out from him. It looks like he is going to be going for some level of Roach Hydra play. He does have +1 missile attacks and +1 melee attacks. So maybe it won't be pure Roach Hydra. Maybe it'll be like Roach Hydra Ling. It's very weird to see somebody go for Hydralisk Den in this matchup at this point, because Stargates were very popular just, I would say, 3 months ago, and then they very much fell off. It's very, I don't personally see a lot of Stargate plays anymore. I don't go for a lot of Stargate plays when I'm playing as a Protoss player versus a Zerg player, whereas back a season ago, it would have been like every game I see a Zerg, I'm like, okay, Stargate, you're gonna get Void Raid. Oh, what's up? But, you know, I think it very much fell off extremely quickly because Zergs learned how to deal with it. They learned how to scout it out very well. They learned how to get those Evo chambers down extremely fast because they are very good when it comes to dealing with any amount of it. Well, upgrades are just very good in general, but at the same time, you know, Spore Crawlers are amazingly cost efficient versus most Protoss air units. It looks like we are going to have actually a major sink into Hydralisks at this point. This is a lot of Hydralisks. You very rarely see this many Hydralisks. That's a lot of Hydralisks. This might be Hydra drops, which is weird to say the least. That is a weird strategy. I don't quite know why you would go for Hydra drops in a situation like this. They're not really the greatest things ever. However, I can almost definitely say that's what's just about to happen. Now, of course, with this observer here, Ben is going to have basically perfect information on this, which is bad for Nasreth, because when you're going for Hydra drops against somebody with this type of production, with, you know, the Colossi just about to finish up, I think the first Colossi is out at this point, although I might be completely wrong. No, the first Colossi is out, and this is a completely scouted attack. Not exactly the situation you want when you're in the Zerg's position, and this is a pretty severe error. He really should not be pushing in. This is only 16 Hydralisks. Not a lot of Hydralisks, especially when you're facing up against more Stalkers than you have Hydralisks and a Colossus and a lot of Sentries. This is going to be a very bad situation. It looks like he's going to be going for a little bit of a pincer attack, so as this drop is going into the main base, we are going to have the rest of the Zerg force moving into the third base, which is not going to be an awful decision because the entire army is already up there. However, the Hydra drop's just going to get face rolled. Ow. Oh, that was painful. And it looks like the engagement at the third base is not going to go amazingly well into the Zerg's favor. We do have a lot of warp-ins happening, and this is the big thing about being a Protoss player, is that you can have a ton of these gateways, and those gateways can buy you all the time in the world so that you can get your regular main forces over there. So it looks like, although a lot of damage is going to be done to the Stalker forces here, it's not going to be anywhere close to irrecoverable. And in the end, I think it's even going to go a little bit in the Protoss player's favor. Now, of course, the extreme repopulation of all the units for the Zerg player is already occurring. We do have some trivial hooks on the way, so we might see a little bit of Baneling play. Don't know why I almost said Banshee, but I did, considering that Banshees and Banelings are quite different units. However, again, I think the Protoss player actually came out a little bit ahead there. That's not units lost, that's units lost. And yeah, we do see he is a little bit ahead as far as resources lost goes, around 1,000, which isn't like game breaking. It's not something that will win or lose you the game either way, but it's something that's very nice to have. It looks like we do have Void Rays, or not Void Rays, we do have Stargates now coming out for Ben. I would be kind of surprised to see a Void Ray. I would be much less surprised to see some level of Mothership tech, or Phoenixes, maybe. Phoenixes just purely for the harassment factor, though, really. Or maybe, you know, to snipe off these overlords that are, you know, just loving the ability to drop. We do have another 16 roaches that are going to be swinging into the main base. This is, of course, not going to be scouted amazingly fast, so these guys might actually be able to do a little bit of damage here. It looks like he's going to be going right for the throat of this production, and he's going to be going right for the Artosis pylon here, and this Artosis pylon is, of course, going to cut off quite a few of the warp gates, which is going to be pretty major. We are going to have 8 stalkers currently in the main base that are going to be doing their best to cut this off. The robotics facility does go down, but the rest of the army has showed up, so it's not going to do that much more damage. But that was pretty efficient. I mean, he cut down a Colossus that was in the middle of production. He cut down 4 gateways from the able to produce for at least a little while, and actually making that a little while longer. Unless he drops 2 pylons or maybe even 3 or 4 pylons, there is no way that this is going to be able to reproduce at this point, which is an awkward position for the Protoss player to be in. That was actually a really nice play by the Zerg player, because that basically shuts down these buildings for at least a little bit. At least, you know, at least if he wants to keep it on 1 pylon, which after that attack, I would say you shouldn't keep it on 1 pylon. I would say just tag on a couple more so that doesn't happen again. But you'll find that a lot of players don't. It looks like we do have a little bit of engagement happening at the 4th base of the Protoss unit. Now, of course, there is... Oh, God, there's Bane Rain. Oh, my God, I didn't even think about this. There is going to be Bane Rain here, and Ben does not want to be in this situation. And in fact, he knows that he is backing up. He is getting the hell out of there. It looks like he is being amazingly cost efficient still, but with that Bane Rain coming in, he really can't risk it. It looks like one of the full Baneling overlords did get taken out, which is a little bit annoying. However, for Nexus, that's pretty worth it, I would say. That's pretty good. It looks like we are going to have a couple more roaches get taken out. Ben, I think, is still in a pretty good position. The only issue is that, again, he is pretty far behind in economics at this point. We do have up to 5 bases going up for the Zerg player. So as soon as these bases start to get mined out, he will instantly be able to transition all of his workers over here. He probably isn't going to be making any more drones because he is at 70, which is really one of the 2 magic numbers. You either go for 70 or you go for 80. A lot of players, you won't see them go for anything in between, just because 70 and 80 is basically what you need. 75 is kind of just awkward, where it cuts down on the amount of army you can have, but you don't really get the full economic boost of the extra 10. And 70 is just, it's a good number. I'd say that's the more common number as far as economy in the Zerg army goes. It looks like we do have the infestation bit on the way finally for Nasreth. I'm not sure if this is really just for a tech up to Hive, or if he's just going to, or if he's actually going to be going for infestors. With the Bane Rain strategies, I wouldn't be too surprised by an infestor play, just because they're very good at locking down stalkers and letting the Bane Rain really do its work. It looks like we have a little bit of a move out coming out from Ben. He still is only sitting on 2 Colossus. His army is basically all stalkers at this point, which isn't an awful decision, since you did have kind of the tech switch away from Hydralisks. And Colossi aren't really that amazing versus a Zerg army unless you're facing a lot of Hydralisks. It looks like we are going to have a bit of a move in from Ben here. I'm not sure how well this is going to go. We have a massive load up coming out from the Banelings. And it looks like we are going to see a little bit of Bane Rain trying to happen here, but some nice force fields, and oh god, the Bane Rain's going to be perfect. Oh god. Oh, that's not good for the Protoss player. Ow. Ow. That was some really, really well played Bane Rain from Nasreth, and we are going to see his economy really start to take hold here. He's going to be building up quite a few more units as soon as all of those guys fell. And even with a mothership, this is still going to be awkward to say the least, because Nasreth very easily has the economy and has the ability to create, you know, those cloaking shield things. Cloaking shield overseers, that's the name. They're the things that can see the cloaking shields from the Protoss army. Man, I did not say that as optimally as I could have. It looks like we do have 313 coming out for Ben, which is actually a pretty nice upgrade. However, 0-2 is done for the Roaches on Nasreth's side, and he really is just going to be macroing out way, way harder than the Protoss. If the Protoss can manage to get up to that 200 number, he would have a chance in this game, but up until then, it's going to be very, very heavily favored towards Nasreth. Just because Nasreth has much more bank, he has the Bane Rain, which is amazingly efficient. It looks like we have... That was a lot of suicide manlings. I bet there is quite a bit of egg now covering Nasreth's face. That was pretty insulting. Ow. God, did he just blow up like 10 banelings into that destructible debris? That was not well played. It looks like Ben is having the warp-ins at his fifth base, fifth base, but he really doesn't have the money to sustain the amount of potential he has as far as warping potential goes, and he's only at 150 out of 200, whereas his opponent is at the full 200 out of 200. It looks like we have +2 armor on the way for Nasreth. He of course obviously has +1, so he is at 1-2, which isn't awful. It's not nearly the 3-3 that Ben is at. However, it's again not horrible. It looks like we are going to have a little bit more of a snipe coming out from the Roaches, which isn't too big of a surprise. These Roaches do quite an extreme amount of damage, and there are quite a few of them. So this army is going to be able to do a lot of damage, and the Protoss doesn't really have a way to fight against it just because of how many Overlords there are. And even though there aren't any Banelings, they have that overlooming threat of Banelings, which is scary for like everybody. It looks like we do have 4 Overseers on the way, so he is going to be wanting to get a snipe down on these Stalkers, because if he manages to get some nice engagements here, it's going to be very hard for the Zerg player to come out ahead, and it looks like these are the nice engagements he's been looking for. There we go, Ben finally managing to snipe off some of the numbers from Nasreth. I'm not quite sure exactly how efficient this is going to be, especially because he's moved his mothership way, way the fuck back. You don't want your mothership back there when you're attacking with the rest of your army. Typically not the best decision in the world. It looks like we do have 11 Hydralisks on the way for Nasreth, so, you know, he's kind of transitioning more back into that Hydralisk composition, which is really just to fight off the mothership, because, of course, when you have Roaches and Zerglings, you don't have anything that can actually kill a mothership. It looks like we also have a Spire on the way, so we could see some Broodlord potential coming out, or even just Corruptors to get rid of the mothership. Both of those are pretty good armies for that. It looks like we have a little bit of a drop going down there. The Banelings cleaning up quite a bit of the probes. If we just look at the units lost tab, we do still have the Zerg in the behind the lead, but he just has such an economic lead that it doesn't matter too much. And if we look at the workers killed, you know, he's killed 33 workers this game, which is kind of just the story of how the game goes. We have a nice vortex going down there, managing to snipe off a lot of the army from from Nasreth, kind of forcing him to actually dump all of his army in there. I'm kind of surprised to not see the Archons piling themselves in there, because Archon toilets are still reasonably effective, and we do have that giant army popping out, and it is an instant ball, and this was actually pretty well played by Ben. I'm not actually sure if he's going to be able to win this fight, and if he loses this fight, he'll probably lose his mothership. Or not, maybe he'll get away with the mothership. And that was pretty well played by Ben. If we look at the units lost tab yet again, he's kind of catching up Nasreth as far as units lost, but again, he has the economic lead, and the economic lead is all you need. If you can manage to keep reasonably even on units lost and then just keep ahead on your economics, you'll be perfectly fine as far as the game goes. We kind of see Nasreth in that sort of situation on 5 bases against the 4 base Protoss. I'm not quite sure if Ben's going to have what it takes to pull this back, because he is rapidly losing places to mine from. His natural is almost mined out. His 3rd doesn't have a whole lot of workers there, and his 4th just got a massive transfusion of probes, but that just makes it a very, very big snipe target. It looks like we do have more units from Nasreth now coming up. A couple of Roaches are going to be heading out and just checking out and scouting positions, which isn't an awful decision. We have 10 Corruptors on the way, so I'm just going to call it right here, and it is going to be a transition into Broodlords, which are going to be quite effective versus this army, because until you get those Broodlords, of course, you have 14 Corruptors to snipe a mothership, and 14 Corruptors basically one-shot a mothership if they get corruption out well enough ahead. That plus the fact of having, you know, the Colossi sniping machines that are Corruptors, not an awful thing. There we do have all of the motherships going down. And oh my god, beautiful engagement from Nasreth, sniping off everything that Ben holds close and dear. And that is going to be an absolute win for Nasreth. And there's the GG from Ben. And that was a really nice final engagement from Nasreth. Not so nice out of Ben. He got lured up to this position, and being on that ramp when you're facing off against the Zerg army is not the best position ever, because the Zerg army is going to be able to outflank you. They have you positioned at a point where even if they start losing the fight, they can split off their Hydralisks and move in to attack the main base, because Hydralisks have very high DPS, but they're not very good if they're the only things left on the battlefield. And really, Nasreth kind of won that game fairly early on as soon as he got that super economic lead, and then he just sniped the Nexus 4 or 5 times. So anyway, guys, if you like any other games that I've commentated, you can head on over to youtube.com/user/boisteroussc2 and check them out over there. Also, if you'd like your games commentated, you can send them on into boisteroussc2@gmail.com. I do, of course, commentate games from all leagues and all ranks and everything. If you guys have a tournament that, you know, you've heard about through the grapevine that's looking for a commentator, I'm looking into getting into more tournaments again. I had a whole ton of fun doing the forum showcase matches. So if anybody has anything like that they need a commentator for, just hit me up over at boisteroussc2@gmail.com. Just drop me a email saying, you know, the time, the place, whether I can do replay commentary or whether it needs to be live, and I will be sure to get back to you ASAP. So anyway, guys, I would like to thank you all for watching, and this is Boisterous signing out.